Bad Movie Crew. Bad Movie Crew.
And we are back with another edition of the Bad Movie Crew. I'm your host, Neil. My brother from another mother, he is here with you. Your other host, Mark.
I'm just here so I don't get fined.
Mark and his best Batman. We're here again with another episode of the Bad Movie Crew. Now, you guys are liking the content. We did have a little hiatus over Christmas and the beginning of the year. Scheduling is really what that was. That wasn't really an intended hiatus or a break. But we got back on the saddle, and in the lead up to the Batman movie on March 4th, we are reviewing various elements of Batman, the character, Batman in television, Batman in film, and we are getting into it with the character of Batman. Now, Mark, my brother, last episode we would have delved into and talked about Batman the character, and now in this second part we are talking about Batman in television.
Yep, that's right. That's right. And now that my voice has recovered, shout out to Christian Bale. I don't know how you did after 3 movies, but that shit hurt. But moving right along, Batman in television. He has been in everything like pops off. He was like busted in the early 2000s. That my mom was in like the sheer amount of content that just looking at his television aspect, the television aspect of it is crazy. Like you had everybody in our age group is familiar with the Adam West, Cappy, Boof, Bam, Bim, Bat Repellent, Bat Repellent, Bat Copter, Bat Computer. You know, we all with that. We all would have grown up with that. And then as we would have gone into secondary school, we would have gotten Batman the animated series. But between Batman the animated series and present day, I was surprised at the amount of content, Batman related content that has been on TV.
There has been a lot of Batman in television, in animated series. As you mentioned, the Boof Bam Bim, Adam West in January. It was premiered January 1966. And there has been, off the top of my head, there has been the animated series, The New Adventures of Batman. There has been Batman Beyond, Batman, The Bold and the Brave, Batman and Robin, the new Batman and Robin, The Boy Wonder from the 70s. There was Batman and Robin. No, sorry, there was Batman in the 60s. No, the 70s, 77.
Yeah, there was also an animated one that brought back the same Anna West and Burt Young as the voice actors. There's the Batman. There's the Batman, the Brave and the Bold. There's Batman Unlimited. Like there was so much, and where all of this come from? Like as I was looking it up, I was like, where all of this come from? Because I mean, the animated series which led to the New Adventures of Batman, and which then led to Batman Beyond. I think after that, like, I was completely lost. Like I didn't know about anything else. But it just goes to show, like, Batman is, as we would have mentioned in the last episode, Batman is one of those characters that just appeals to every age. It just appeals, just the character himself, because again, in the world of aliens and Amazon goddesses and people that can tap into the Speed Force, whatever that is, he's just human.
So you would say he's the Spider-Man of the DC. When I say Spider-Man, I don't necessarily in power set or whatever, but in terms of, I don't even want to say street level, but in terms of being relatable, or being a relatable character, even though he's a billionaire, genius, martial art, top detective.
Yeah, he still has. I get what you're saying, and I would say that, but I mean, you mentioned the fact that he's a billionaire. I think that's why that's where Spider-Man is kind of above him when it comes to
relatable. More people poor than our billionaires.
also, Spider-Man, we don't want to derail this from Batman, but Spider-Man has probably the most relatable, outside of being bit by a radioactive spider that can cling to walls and does that sort of shit. His life is probably the most relatable you could get. Right. Like everybody, that had hardship at school, has got girl troubles, has got work problems, rent problems, like it's relatable. But back to the topic at hand, I would say Batman and Spider-Man have that going for them in terms of being very relatable to the average Joe.
So let me ask you this, Mark. In terms of Batman in television,
Mhm.
as you mentioned, he was campy back in the 60s, in the 70s. With that, the one where they brought back Adam West and
Yeah.
those voices and etc. It was like a continuation of that, but only an animated form.
Yep.
And then as you go, particularly after, because remember, after the 77 animated show with Batman and Robin, the Boy Wonder, we did not see anything really from Batman in television and film since the 89. I mean, I could be wrong, but I don't remember there being much of Batman in the way of audiovisual content.
I
So
can't really not between 70s. The Super Friends, if you want to call them, but I think
yeah,
they
but
were
like focusing
to say
primarily
on
on
Batman.
Batman. Right,
I
Batman.
really can't really think of anything between that and then
The
Tim
Batman
Burton's
with Batman.
Batman. I really can't remember.
Right. So he would have obviously Tim Burton's Batman would have sparked a renewed interest in Batman the character. So they would have had the movies, but the television show. Let's kind of, because we're not gonna go through all now.
No.
But let's kind of start. We're gonna start in the 60s with what everybody knows as Batman, with Adam West.
Mhm.
And you kind of jump from there to post Tim Burton's Batman, which would be Batman
The
the
animated.
Animated Series,
Yep.
which was groundbreaking. It was phenomenal. Some of the voice actors have gone on. Like Mark Hamill had a renewed career off of this. You know, Kevin Conroy, legendary voice actor now. So he is the voice of Batman in some to some people. So let's start with Adam West Batman. Now,
Mhm.
January 1966, they would have put out the campy Batman. We remember watching it when we were young boys, and it was, you know, at the time we just saw it as Batman. It was humorous, it was entertaining, and I guess because we were so young, we didn't necessarily see it as being a bad thing
Correct.
on the character, like it being something that should not be so for a character. No, for me personally, I believe that you got to kind of go to varying degrees when it comes to Batman. You got to go to certain, like in the portrayal of Batman, you have to go to extreme. You either have to be campy as they did with the Adam West thing when he first did it, or you got to go to what we've been seeing recently with the more gritty, hardcore,
Grounded.
realistic, grounded
Yeah.
Batman. So there's no real in between. And those two are kind of like the gates of the character of Batman. You can't kind of make him goofy, but then still being the bump that goes, like the thing that goes bump in the night.
Yeah.
So Adam West Batman, Mark, tell me what you remember about it. Tell me your likes and dislikes about it, and tell me about what you perceive as the impact of it on the character and the culture.
Ah, ooh, off the top of my head, as you would have said, that's when we were young. So, you know, you growing up, you would know of Batman, but you wouldn't have the like the comic book scene wasn't that big here. I mean, I could be wrong. If it was that big in the 80s, let me know. But us growing up, you would get a comic book here or there if like somebody happened to come in from the States and they're bringing something for you, and you know, here's a comic book, you see Batman. So to appeal to those in the 60s, I guess they had to kind of soften who he was, the character he was. You had to make, like you said, had to make him campy. So you will have the soft ears. His costume was more purple than dark. You know, you had the holy rusted metal Batman. You know, you had the foolish lines, and the villains had to be just as comical. I mean, you had the Joker, and you had the Penguin, you had the Riddler, you had Catwoman. So you had to make them larger than life. And I think entry level going into it, being 5, 6, seeing that, you'd be like, hey, cool, haha, that's funny. Yeah, biff bam. I guess the censorship you can't really see people getting cuffed on TV in the 60s like that, especially if you're appealing to kids. So it made sense. As we get older, yeah, if you look at it and say, well, you know, this is what Batman's supposed to be. Batman's a man that stand up in the shadows and step out, and like, you know, there's a joke of saying that the man is more send more henchmen. Um send more henchmen to the hospital than the actual villain himself. But you know, so it I can't say it really hurt the character for the time it came out in. Because you're doing it was a sign of the times. Like looking at it now, 30 to 40 years later, yeah, you can say, well, oh, this was rubbish. But if you put yourself in the 60s, late 60s, early 70s, that is what would have sold. That's what you had to do to get your show on TV. And I mean, no, the bat repellent and the bat copter and the bat computer and stuff like that. Yeah, they had to play up. So I don't really think it hurt for the time it was in. Um, they did show the playboy aspect of it. They did show Wayne Manor. They did show him as Bruce Wayne having, you know, the affection of the ladies and stuff, especially Catwoman, as both was she playing Selena Kyle? I really can't remember if she was
Who's this?
Catwoman. I can't remember if her
Me, Eartha Kitt?
I can't remember if her she was Selena Kyle back then. But even as the alter ego to Catwoman, she was still drawn to Bruce Wayne, whatever. So I don't think it hurt. I just think it was, you chalk it up to, it was the sign of the times. It was just the times that they were in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely agree. I think, you know, you gotta look at the time, the modesty of the time. Certain things can be on television, and certain like shows what was up around then, the first Star Trek, the first iteration of Star Trek, and even then some of the violence and some of the dress of some of the women on film. Shoot, even, you know, we don't want to get into color, but at that time, you know, certain people of a certain hue were not necessarily prominent on film. So it was a very conservative time.
Correct.
And you had this character that you could have done so much with. But as you rightly said this, so and then too, you gotta think of the mentality of it. Like Batman is geared toward more men than women, and men of that time, adult men at that time, saw Batman and superheroes and comic books as to be childish things. So they marketed it more to children, marketed it more to I wouldn't even say young adults, but essentially children, right? So yeah, again, I don't know it. I also think it did a very good job of impacting who he was, who the character was in popular culture, because, you know, there are so many great things you remember, the boof bim bam, the soft ears, shark repellent. Who can forget when they were trying to escape from the sea, again, the helicopter and the shark was trying to get them, and my mom said, hold on, shark repellent, right? So it was campy, and it has a cult following for sure, and it definitely sparked a lot of memorable things that is, especially now when the internet have come back around, are very popular. Obviously, Adam West would have passed a few years ago, and you know, even Adam West had a storied career based on that. He has revisited the character. When they say the character, I mean the mannerisms and everything like that. Like, I think he was in Archer, and you know, like in certain other animated works, and you can, when you hear him and how he portrays those characters, he always injects a bit of that Batman into it, in terms of his demeanor and everything like that. It's kind of like Mark Hamill's Joker versus, what was the thing he was in the other day when he was essentially when we closed your eyes and we saw it, we said, but as Skeletor, right, Skeletor. What can we forget, right? So it is like that. He has found work and he has impacted the culture. Batman and that TV series, live action television series, did impact it and everything like that. So we have a special place in our heart for that. We wouldn't necessarily hold it as a frame of reference for the Batman character, because then we get into getting into ridiculous. But it was a very campy, very comedic take
on it,
on the character. No, we flash forward. We can skip over the 70s because it's essentially the continuation of that Batman, and then Batman and Robin, the Boy Wonder, was essentially kind of taking on that, adding in characters like Batwoman and Batgirl and all the other stuff, Batmite and stuff like that. So that went into ridiculous, and then that spills into the 80s of Super Friends, which was also at times it was a bit more serious, but it was also a bit campy at times. So we can kind of
the twin powers activate.
There you go. So we can skip over those elements, those properties, and then we can go to post Tim Burton's 1989 Batman. Batman, the animated series. Mark, this was groundbreaking for the Batman character because everybody remembered campy Batman. I think most people remember the campy Batman. And then even the first Tim Burton's movie, while it was more gritty and grounded, it was still a bit campy. It was still a bit, there were elements with the
Yeah,
sound and,
the
certain.
joke and the Joker, and rightfully so, a lot of people love Jack Nicholson's Joker. Even he had a bit of campiness to him.
Mm-hmm.
So they tried to blend it, but we'll get into that in our next episode. Um, but post Batman 1989, the animated series will go down in history as what kind of really brought Batman to the forefront of even the casual fan. Um, is heralded as everything that's happening that is almost has been canonized in the comic book lore. Is the definitive Batman go-to if you want to reference Batman. Everybody our age can tell you after school to rush home 5 o'clock, 5:30 to go up in front of TV to watch it
Yep.
because it was just that good. And it gave us Mark Hamill's Joker, which has gone on to is no again the definitive standard what we look for in an animated Joker. Mark Hamill's even gone on to voice him in video games, stuff like that. And Kevin Conroy, as you said, the voice of Batman. Funny thing is that was his first voicing gig. Like that he had never done it before, and he ran with it. Like you if you hear that Batman, he was like, yeah, well, they know other Batman. Uh, Christian Bale did his thing in putting his own spin on it, but for almost and everybody our age, Kevin Conroy is the voice of Batman. They gave us Harley Quinn, which was created for that show, and now has become has her own
She
her
had her own
own
movie.
had her own movie.
Yeah.
She has her own life in the comics. She's had a run in comics. They did a good job of making the villains sympathetic. The ones that have a tragic story, they did a good job of fleshing out what made Dr. Freeze, Pamela is the Catwoman, uh, even the Joker. They made him. I can't really say sympathetic, but they made him more appealing as a character, not just some random madman that just blowing up shit. Like they made the characters everything from that made you understand, gave you if you didn't know about Batman and that was your first foray into the Dark Knight, like you are set up good. Like from there, I ain't saying you could go and have 2 hour long debates with people that have been reading forever. But if you're in a casual conversation, just following the animated series, you'll be good. Like that's what 20, 30 years now, and we
Yeah,
still
that's
referencing
30
that's
years. That's
30
30
years. That is
years.
30 years, and we are still referencing that as the jump off point for Batman for the younger generation. Like right now, if I was to have a child and they want to ask me about Batman, I said, look, go
Yeah,
watch that and
start
then
there. Start
start
there.
there. Start there. Don't worry about the 60s, don't worry about 70s. Start here and we could come back. You could come back because for a cartoon show, it was well written, well voice acted. They did a good job of blending the making Gotham feel gritty, even in cartoon form. But they also was able to splice in some technology that would make Batman seem superior than the general force. Because quite frankly, you can never tell exactly what era the animated series is in. You can't tell if it's the 60s because you got Harvey Dent still doing his gangster stuff and people with Tommy guns, but yet you got some technology that really don't fit that gangster 70s era. So they did a very good job of drawing you in, and uh the high the city, like I said, the city was dark and gritty in the areas I had with dark and gritty. But then when you check like where Bruce Manor, Wayne Manor is nice and sunny and bright. They were good at doing the contrast. Like I can't even I can't even gush anymore about it. And I'm 40. I can be 42 this year, and I would still sit down and watch a marathon of the animated series, like and not have a problem with if we were to revisit He-Man and be like, all right,
Man did not age well.
did not age well, but the animated series it aged very well, and I kudos to the people that were behind it, because I think the way they tackled the subject matter of everything was they did not they didn't do any hand holding in the animated series. They said this is it. And yeah, we kind of market it to children, but the adults can still understand what's going on, and we'll look at it like you're watching a bunch of rubbish. So like hats off to them. And yeah, that's my take on it.
Yeah, man. I mean, I completely agree. It came out in 1992, 3 years after the first Tim Burton's Batman, and it was very, very gritty. It was violent. It was very violent, even though they didn't show certain things on screen. It definitely, like, people died in Batman, the animated series. People passed away. People were taken out.
Yeah.
You understand?
People were put to pasture.
Right. So, you know, this is the first time, because Batman, the 1989 Tim Burton film, that had violence. People did die in that, but it still had that camp. People still died in comedic ways, like, somebody get blow up and it's like, oh, look at that, kiki, haha, right? It was comedic deaths, and everybody was, it was played for laughs, is what he's trying to say. In the animated series, they would have like somebody about to perish. They would do the cutaway to another character's expression, and it was like, that man ain't ended so good. Like, I remember, because one thing we gotta talk about too, we gotta talk about the animated films that spun off of the Batman, the animated series. You had
Mask of
Phantasm, Batman and Batman and Mr. Freeze, Sub-Zero, that was released in 1998. The first one is 93, that's Massive Phantasm, and then 98 was the other one, Batman, Mr. Freeze, Sub-Zero. And even in those, for animated films at that time, it was like kind of rough. You know what I mean? Like I remember at that time, the man was even looking at some of the ratings and saying, yeah, I don't know if we could put this as a PG-13. This may have to get an R rating, and it was,
Yeah.
But yeah, I completely agree. I think it also, not only did it flesh out certain characters that were played for laughs before, like the Joker, but even if I continue speaking about the Joker, it showed him to be a lot more measured. To me, he did a great job of bolstering the lore of the Joker. If you understand me, like the mental makeup and the kind of, you may not still understand what his motivations are and what he's about, but it gives you an understanding like, okay, this man ain't just out here as a clown. This man is far, he may have on he may look like a clown. That man is far from a clown, because back in the 60s, we all know that Joker was over the top. He played it as, I guess, you tell me dress up like a clown, so I will play an unhinged man, an unhinged gangster, right? And he wasn't very much of a gangster, so to speak. And in Tim Burton's Batman, the first one, Jack Nicholson did a very, very good job of showing you, this man ain't just a clown. This man ain't just, his man is comedic.
He got some bringing to it. There's some bringing power to his menacing.
Yeah. And you can see that he did a very good job of showing that he's unhinged. So for me, Mark Hamill's Joker played up that sense of being unhinged. Like, whatever it was, this man is unstable. This man is not a clown. This man is not to be taken lightly. This man, as you say, my man got on wingtips.
Fenty makeup on wingtips.
My man got Fenty makeup and wingtips. And he is the most dangerous man probably in the DC universe, because he is so unstable, because he is so unpredictable. So I think they did a very, very good job of pushing Batman into a more mainstream character for this modern age, and that was kind of part of the catalyst for him, Batman, and his characters, and his villains, everything like that, for showing you that it may be animated, but this ain't for children. He may be a comic book character, but if done right, he don't really put the kids to bed. This ain't for them, right? So we move on from there now, and I think the next best place to go would be Batman Beyond. Batman Beyond now is kind of like a far future sequel of the new adventures of Batman. So essentially, in the future, Terry McGinnis' kid, this is the far future. I mean, flying cars, some punkish kind of cyberpunk kind of dress and vibe. But basically, this is the far future. Bruce Wayne, Batman, is a very old
finally
man.
old.
Finally old. He's in his 80s. I don't know how this man has walked. He's walked with the help of a cane. I'm like, bruh, like you out of bed is amazing, right? So anyhow, that's neither here nor there. This is not about Batman the character. We've dealt with him before. So right, Terry McGinnis, he's a kid. Through luck and chance, ends up at Bruce Wayne's feet, and he decides to train him, mentoring him to become the new Batman with a new augmented suit. Think of it like, for those of you that don't know, think of it as Iron Man in a Batman suit.
Yeah, Batman in an Iron Man suit.
Yeah, think of it as Iron Bat. Essentially, he has a heads-up display, has various gadgets. He could fly, thrusters. He has armor, etc. Right? Things that Bruce Wayne would have loved back in his day. Maybe he would have been, not have had some of the injuries he would have had. So
yeah.
Let's talk about that Batman. Let's talk about Batman Beyond. How do you see that and its impact on the whole Batman character and the legacy of Batman?
I think it did a great job of passing the mantle. Because again, you're now coming into, I guess, a more aware society where we know that this man can't do this forever. And they do a good job. In the very first episode, they do a good job of showing the wear and tear and the effects of being Batman for so long that he almost breaks his rule of using no guns. Because in the middle of a fight, he gets a heart attack. And the robber is about to shoot him, and he pulls a gun, and the robber is so shocked that Batman had to pull a gun that he drops a gun and run away. I mean, that don't make sense, but we can let it slide because it's cartoon. But Batman was to that point where he knew it was time to hang it up. And so now you need Batman. Gotham will always need a Batman. So how is it next going to happen? And, almost beat for beat, Terry McGinnis has a tragedy. I just had luck and chance, ends up in front. Wayne Manor, Batman passes on the mantle. It does a good story. It's a great attempt of showing you what would happen if somebody really took up the mantle of Batman, but Bruce Wayne is still alive. I mean, you have Robin, and Robin had the first Robin went on to be Nightwing because he couldn't stand being in his shadow, and Batman, we know it took a heart attack for him to say, shit.
Yeah, it's time.
It's time. So we know that if he didn't have that heart attack, he'd probably still be going, which again, let me not worry about that. But still, I think the series was great. I put it up there as probably the second best animated show, right after the animated series. I mean, the animated series branched into the New Adventures, which was a continuation, and their animation was a little more streamlined. But to me, that I lump all of them as one. So to me, this is probably the second best animated show that's been on television, because it now shows Batman. It almost gives Batman the Spider-Man treatment. Again, sorry to reference Spider-Man, but here we have a high schooler having to balance high school life and being a superhero. And, it comes with all the aches and pains of balancing schoolwork, balancing a social life, and then you have this nighttime job. Like, you have this after school job that is almost more important than everything else. And then you still have to present a normal life. So it does a good job, and it shows all of the pitfalls that comes with being a high school superhero. And they also did a good job of, again, tackling mature topics, I guess, because I think it's the same people that did the animated series did Batman Beyond. So they continue the serious tone of it. Yes, there were lighthearted moments. They didn't pull any punches, and this one for sure, because you're a little more mature now. People dying. Like they're really not. We've come a long way from the boof bam bam to literally seeing people
in a boof bam bam. It is
yeah. You're seeing people, like, again, they're doing the thing where you're about to see the killing blow, but they cut away and you can see from the people reaction, or it's implied by voiceover, narration, whatever, that this body did not die of old age.
He did not make
it. But it was really, really impressive. And again, it even gave us a couple movies as well, which are pretty decent as well. But Batman Beyond is actually I rate it very high.
Yeah. For me, again, this would have come out in like around 2000. Batman Beyond, and I was trying to think in my mind when the first Sam Raimi Spider-Man came out, because you did make mention to something that got the wheels in my head turning, and that being kind of a DC allegory to Spider-Man, and showing that, because again, at the beginning of this, we said there are parallels to Batman and Spider-Man across the different media houses, publication houses, and you can see a more grounded, realistic kind of street level, relatable human person in Batman, Bruce Wayne, and Peter Parker. So I was wondering if this was to be a direct comparison to that, because Batman obviously is a man, and Spider-Man, Peter Parker, is a teenager a young adult going into teenager, going into adulthood.
Yeah, if I remember correctly,
I think the first Spider-Man came out in 98.
No, 2000s. It was after 2001, because I remember there's a scene that they had to cut out.
Oh, because of 9/11.
Because of 9/11. I remember that they had to take out a scene from the first Spider-Man. So that it had to be after 2000. But if I remember correctly, when because I did watch a like a little YouTube video on it. They now wanted to market the Batman Beyond.
Sorry to cross you. The first Spider-Man came out in 2002.
Right.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Right. So yeah, what they want, I think the idea, if I remember correctly, the idea behind Batman Beyond was to try to capture the same market that would have started with the animated series. So we're 12 when that came out. We are now that came out in 2000, so we're now kind of 20. So they kind of try to, I guess, would keep the same. They want to recapture the same people that would have started. So now they're much older. So now I guess at 12, I'm not sure what equivalent that is in the American school system, but they try to now appeal to those that would now be going off to college and now finishing high school. So they would now understand, well, okay, it's still a cartoon, but it's now geared towards
young adults and teens.
Exactly. So inadvertently, they end up being kind of still making the cross reference to Spider-Man.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. So yeah, I mean, Batman Beyond. You know what I loved about Batman Beyond, because I agree with everything you say. I don't see a need to essentially repeat what you said, but I did like the fact that it shows you how life has gone for the characters of the new animation. Sorry, the animated series, right? The New Adventures of Batman, right? Or Batman the animated series. It shows you, Poison Ivy, the lady, Suicide Squad lady, Amanda Waller.
Yeah,
Waller. It shows even Superman, even some of the Justice League. You see them, and you get an understanding of what things took place, what has happened. You know what I mean? Like, yes, Batman is old, but he's old and alone, and and he has not affected any real
Change.
impact on like the crime in Gotham or the Justice
The
League or
Ponzi
whatever.
scheme, buddy.
Yeah.
Ponzi scheme. The Ponzi scheme.
Yep.
Barbara. And so even Barbara, who plays Batgirl, becomes a commissioner of police, and she doesn't have a relationship. Well, they still talk,
but yeah, it's not like
it's more cordial than remember the next that we used to be like kicking ass and good old thing. No. Like it shows you it did a good job. You said it does a good job of showing the solitary life that he has made for himself.
Yep. And to add on that, I even think it shows you his psychological makeup, the character, because you see Bruce Wayne is a billionaire, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's be honest. Any of us is a billionaire, we're putting on a suit to go and fight crime. We would donate to the police and done with that. You know what I mean? We would, put resources in place through the judicial system or through the societal system to deal with crime and the spill-off results of crime. We're putting on a coal and cape and running boat and dealing with getting up broken ribs and all of that, unless we got, as we mentioned before, Iron Man-esque or Batman Beyond-esque type soup, right? And even then, the billionaire is a billionaire. It could be put a beach somewhere breezing, right?
Correct.
But it shows you just how that incident of him losing his parents just shows you how it has truly affect him as a character. And I guess this could be hyperbole and just me being, I don't know, but Batman, in terms of the psychological impact of crime, I don't know if it's studied, but it should be studied, because yes, it's fictional, but he lost his parents at a very early age. It severely impacted him because he had fear. He had fear of his city. He had fear of being alone. He had different fears. Shoot, even found out about fears of bats. And he decided, you know what, enough is sufficient. I am going to conquer my fears. And in the process, I am not only going to lend my resources to fighting crime, but I'm going to take it and actually do a direct impact on crime. And that's a lonely life. Because you literally are, you got to show one side of yourself to the public as you play a boy drunk, don't care about nothing. And you have to balance that with your personal life. He has never had a steady girlfriend. This man has resources out his ears. This man keeps people that he has around him to mentor, particularly young children, because he wants to not have them have the same pitfalls as him. He takes on Dick Grayson, who lost his parents as well, the other Robins, Tim Drake. And, he fathers a son, but even that relationship is fractured. Relationship with the mother and the relationships even that he gets into are with essentially criminals, Catwoman, Talia al Ghul, right? And it's like he has been severely messed up and warped by the deaths of his parents, death of his parents. So him being in Batman Beyond, he went all around the world to come back and say, in Batman Beyond, you show he is alone. There's no more Alfred. Alfred has passed. Nightwing has gone on to do his thing. Barbara Gordon is now the commissioner of police because her father obviously would have passed. Everybody has moved on. You see that the Joker's followers have, it's kind of like the Joker movie kind of thing where they're doing stuff in his name and his honor, right? Because he left a legacy to them. And Batman, as you said, he had a heart attack when he was like in his 50s or whatever. And he had to raise a gun. It showed him it's time to done with this here, because if I'm willing to shoot people because they're not physically able, I better move on. And he got the opportunity at Terry McGinnis some years later. I think it was like 20 years later or something like that. He got the opportunity to mentor and groom Terry McGinnis to be the next Batman. So it shows you, and even in that, like him now having somebody in his life that he can have a rapport with, or a Batman friendship with. He likes having Terry McGinnis in his life. He doesn't obviously show it to anybody else, and we see it in candid moments, but it shows you just how damaged this man has been, and how, I will make a joke, he can't even go to therapists because therapists just turn into super criminals, super villains in
You got
them. Who's the psychiatrist?
You got flight to Metropolis.
You imagine him going to you imagine him dealing with his issues by going to Scarecrow. You know what I mean? Go as a scarecrow and told them in their day job identities and be like, yeah, Doc, I have a problem. My parents were murdered. He said, well, you sure? You know, I got a thing for fear. I got something that could deal with the fear. Take 2 of these every morning.
All right, and then not naked to it. Person one of the
Wanna
grudges.
yeah. So Batman Beyond is a very good series. At first, I did not like it because I was so attached to the animated series. And that style and everything like that, because I didn't necessarily the art style and their depiction of the future. I always hit a miss when it comes to depictions of the future in media. But but over time I grew to love it. I grew to understand that, you know what? This is a very good look at Batman Bruce Wayne. Now from there we can tackle one more because, and I can give a reason why we can only tackle one more because it kind of goes on into, you know, but the 2004 The Batman, right? That is why in the last episode I would have said not to be confused with, because in 2004, after some time, 4 years, they had The Batman. Now, after Batman Beyond, interest started to wane on Batman the character because
almost like burnout. Because right about then you're getting the other Tim Burton movie, you're getting Joel Schumacher movies. So
there was like 5 Batman films in between there. There were the animated series and the movies. Then you had the New Adventures, and then you got, you know what I mean? So it was like, at 2004, it was like, sorry, at the early 2000s, it was like, eh. And then with the rise of like the new Spider-Man
movies,
right. So it was like, Batman is kind of played out if they can be going to the far future and everything like that. But they tried to revive the character in television with the Batman, the 2004 animated series, which would have kind of shown a young Bruce Wayne, fresh in his career. I think it was after year 1. He is now Batman, the Batman, and he now fighting crime. He's now dealing with the likes of the Joker for the first time, the Penguin for the first time, and those types of characters. And he's trying to find his footing, balance his life, and reconcile some of his demons. Mark, how did you see the impact of the Batman? I know by that time we are now working men, and it was very hard to follow along as thing. But I did watch occasionally. So let me know.
Same.
Yeah, let me know what you thought of the impact from the limited viewings of it for you.
Like you said, we working. We ain't got that time. The few episodes I did catch. I did like. I did like the art style. I didn't like the depiction of the Joker. I don't know. I think he looked more heavy metal rock.
He had like a mullet.
I think they went back to. I think they tried to bring back the campiness of the Joker, because what I found they did with the villains is that each person played up to what they were. So the Riddler, he's a more serious physical. He looks more imposing in stature, but he's really all about the riddles and stuff. So it's almost like, this is who I am, this is what I am, and this is how I will always be. They made the Joker more comical. Clayface was scary as shit.
Yes, he was.
There's some episodes of that, like, I was like, this is PG. I'm trying to remember who that. Yeah, so it was the art style I liked, but I didn't like the drawing of the Joker. Didn't like that depiction. They even went on to bring in Batgirl and Robin. So I love the first season's theme song, where like it was almost like that heavy metal, gritty, and they were ending. It was cool, and then when they brought in the sidekicks, they kind of like child friendly it and stuff like that. But I don't have much recollection of it. But the few episodes I've watched, I dig what they did. Giving him a ally other than Gordon on the police force was a nice touch. I think I can't remember the actress name now. Oh Lord, she played Chun Li and was in Agents of Shield.
Oh, yeah.
May White.
Michelle.
Oh me. Oh
I know
Lord.
what you mean. I can do a quick Google search so we can get this
Right, but
right.
she's the voice actor. She's the voice actress. For his friend on the police force. That's like, and they do a great job of again showing you
Ming Na Min.
right.
I hope I
Her,
pronounced that right. Ming Na Min.
right. She was a voice. She did voice acting in that, and it was good. Like I said, I have a limited reference frame from
Right.
it, but the few episodes I did watch was pretty awesome.
Yeah, for me, the same. I do remember it being because around this time my brother now would be he would now be my younger brother would be a teenager. Yeah, he would be a teenager and he was into it. He would watch it when it comes on and everything like that. And I found it as you said, I like the art style. I did not like the illustration of the Joker, how he was depicted. But yes, it was a bit camp and a bit goofy. You can see there was still a bit of the psychological aspect to it, but it was kind of downplayed. To me it was good, but I don't know if it would have it did anything to kind of re-energize people for Batman the character, because oddly enough the next year, my friend, do you know what came out? Batman Begins, and that changed the game. So
yep.
And then that is why I said that I'm going to end it off. The last piece of TV content for Batman, the character.
Actually, we forgot Gotham, the series.
I know. I'm not going to talk about that because Batman is not in that. I'm sorry, but that to me does very little. It does very little for the Batman characters that we know, because all that does is kind of convolutes the whole. It pollutes. I am gonna say convolutes. It pollutes.
I had to put that in there. You know that.
Yeah, I understand. But the reason why we can end with the 2004 The Batman is because after that, for the last 15 years, 16 years, 17 years, we have gotten a steady stream of Batman content, and the interest in Batman has been re-energized, and we've gone that through the films, right? Which we will cover in the next episode. So we had the Christopher Nolan's Batman, and then along came the Justice League, the DCEU, the DC
EU. You was right.
right.
DCEU.
Right.
Yeah.
I guess
not to be confused with the DCAU.
Yeah, the acronyms. So along came those movies, and the depictions of Batman in those were magnifique, but we'll get into that. So then there were other Batman properties in television. There was Batman the Brave and the Bold. There was Beware the Batman. There were several others, but we're not going to get into those because the focus.
I have no frame of reference.
I have no frame of reference, and if I'll be quite honest, I think the movies took the focus away from the television series, and it gave you a more because they were so good, it gave you more impetus to wait for the movies than to kind of waste time watching kind of like a lucky dip in those television series. And also to consider, around somewhere in that timeline, we would have gotten you mentioned it, the DCAU, the animated universe.
No, the animated one, along the line would have been the animated universe, which is again
amazing. I mean, and Batman would have had his own movies in that space and everything like that. So even those things would have taken more interest away from the television thing. And plus, television started to die too. People are not tethered to television and cable like that before. People are now watching things online. So that is why we're going to stop here at 2004's The Batman. And that is it. I mean, Batman in television has done a very good job. I think it did a good job in kind of stemming the tide or holding on while
only 4 movies were
being
made,
especially between the Tim Burton's Batman and the Christopher Nolan's Batman. Like, I think they did a very good job of holding the interest of people for the character of Batman and allowing people to see and get insights into the character and make it more gritty, and it kind of prepared people for and helped with the transition of seeing a gritty, grimy Batman, where we saw in Batman v Superman, the movie, Batman kills. And while it was divisive, I think it would have been far worse if we went cold turkey from Batman, Tim Burton's Batman not doing any killing or anything like that, the animated series making sure not to have
not indirect killing, but we covered that.
Yeah. But understand what I'm saying. If we had gotten animated series and television shows that showed, Batman tying them up and leaving them for the police, it would have been a harder sell to see Batman straight up murder people in Batman v Superman. Because it was split, it was divisive, but I think some people accepted it more. And if, Batman was, doing the Spider-Man thing and tying him up and leaving them for the police, and then all of a sudden the movie come out and the man saying, well, when I got dead, quite tired of
got dead here.
Right? It would be like, how are we going with this character? So we appreciate the television series. We appreciate from Adam West all the way back down to the New Adventures of Batman, the animated series, the movies that came from that, Batman Beyond, and the Batman. We appreciated what they did for the lore, not only for Batman, for the secondary characters and the supervillains. We really appreciated. Joker surely benefited. So, Mark, any last words on that? And let me wrap up and give the people
like
into
I said, you did it. Like you said, after 2004, we were into the movies, so that's what we'll be looking at in the next episode. Again, thank you for joining us. As always, like, comment, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell. If you think we're talking junk, if you have a different opinion on the animated, let me know down in the comments how y'all feel. And again, as always, peace, love, and everything in between.